Good evening, and welcome to Comfort and Courage with Father Jim Perra, Grace, Traverse City. Um, I am coming to you this evening to engage in some prayer and to read some spiritually nourishing material, I hope. Hmm. No, no news of particular note that I can think of at this time. This Sunday will be our first Sunday in Easter, and we will certainly we have some musical material, and we will do uh, Zoom and WebEx coffee hours as we've done. I think we're beginning to work the kinks out of that. Um, and so thank you for being with me tonight, and see if there's any questions at the end. And in case you're worried, there's nothing on fire behind me. It's just the incense. So we will start, as we have been, with prayer from J. Philip Newell's Celtic Treasure Prayer Book. Today is day 2 of a new section that is called Sayings of Wisdom. So let us settle in, take 3 deep breaths, and begin our prayer. You light a light in the name of the God who creates life, in the name of the Savior who loves life, in the name of the Spirit who is the fire of life. Let us be still and aware of God's presence within and all around us. I will tell you what wisdom is and how she came to be, and will trace her path from the beginning of time. I will make her teachings clear to you, and I will not pass by the truth. For the company of the wise is the salvation of the world, and those who love her receive great treasure. Wisdom is radiant like the whiteness of the moon, and more beautiful than the glistening stars. She is found by those who seek her, and makes herself known to those who long for her. She can be found sitting at the gateways of life, in every moment and on every path. She is a breath of the power of God and a pure flow of heaven's glory. She is a reflection of eternal light and an image of God's goodness. Wisdom was in the beginning with God. She is creation's artist and the fashioner of everything that exists. She loves right relationship and teaches justice and courage. She knows the things of old and senses the things to come. She understands all speech and can interpret every sign and wonder. And so I loved her and sought her from my youth. I chose her as my bride and have delighted in her presence, for she is the everlasting gift of God. From the Wisdom of Solomon, the 6th chapter. Tonight's reading is from a book by Walter Brueggemann called Sabbath as Resistance, Saying No to the Culture of Now. And it is, I think, particularly useful for us in this moment where I think most of us are a little bit desperate to try to be more productive, to try to get things done. And it's good to be reminded that, frankly, that's part of the brokenness of both our world and perhaps even our own culture. This idea that our whole value has to do with what we produce and how much money that we can either make or make for someone else. So this is from the first chapter of Sabbath as resistance, and it is talking about the first commandment and how the idea of the Sabbath is reflected in the first commandment, which is, of course, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods than me, and you shall not make any graven images of me. That might be the second commandment. It depends on Exodus. Let's continue with Walter Brueggemann. The first commandments concern God, God's aniconic character, and God's name. But when we consider the identity of this God, we are made immediately aware that the God who will brook no rival and who eventually will rest is a God who is embedded in a narrative. This God is not known or available apart from that narrative. The narrative matrix of Yahweh, the God of Israel, is the Exodus narrative. This is the God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Thus, the Sabbath commandment is drawn into Exodus as a narrative. For the God who rests is the God who emancipates from slavery, and consequently from the work system of Egypt and from the gods of Egypt who require and legitimate that work system. It is for that reason fair to judge that the prohibition against the other gods in the first commandment pertains directly to the gods of Egypt and other gods of the same ilk in Canaan, or subsequently the gods of the great empires of Assyria, Babylon, or Persia. In the narrative imagination of Israel, the gods of Egypt are stand-ins for all the gods of the several empires. What they all have in common is that they are confiscatory gods who demand endless produce and who authorize endless systems of production that are, in principle, insatiable. Sound familiar to anyone? Just saying. Thus, the mention of Egypt brings the God of Israel into the orbit of socioeconomic systems and practices that inevitably sets this God on a collision course with the small g gods of insatiable productivity. The reference to Egypt indicates that the God of Sinai who gives the Ten Commandments is never simply a religious figure, but is always preoccupied with and attentive to socioeconomic practice and policy. If we want then to understand this God, or any God, we must look to the socioeconomic system that God legitimates and authorizes. In the case of the Egyptian gods, who are in contrast to and in competition with the God of the Exodus, Yahweh, we look to Pharaoh. Systems of production that is legitimated by the gods worshipped by Pharaoh. In Exodus 5, we are given a passionate narrative account of that labor system in which Pharaoh endlessly demands more production. What the slaves are to produce is more bricks that are to be used for the building of more supply cities in which the Pharaoh can store his endless supply of material wealth in the form of grain. See Exodus chapter 1, 11th verse. Because the system was designed to produce more and more surplus. There is always more need for storage units that in turn generated more need for bricks with which to construct them. Thus, if we follow the required bricks from the slave camps, we end with surplus wealth taken as a gift of the small g gods of Pharaoh. In this narrative report, Pharaoh is a hard-nosed production manager for whom production schedules are inexhaustible. Why are you taking the people away from their work? Get to your labors. Yet you want them to stop working. You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But you shall require the same quantity of bricks as they have made previously. Do not diminish it, for they are lazy. Let heavier work be laid on them. They will labor at it and pay no attention to deceptive words. I will not give you straw. Go and get straw yourselves wherever you find it, but your work will not be lessened in the least. Complete your work, the same daily assignment as when you were given straw. Why did you not finish the required quantity of bricks yesterday and today as you did before? No straw is given to your servants, yet they say to us, make bricks. You are lazy. Lazy, that is why you say, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Go now and work, for no straw will be given to you, but you shall still deliver the same number of bricks. And lastly, verse 19 of the 5th chapter of Exodus, you shall not lessen your daily number of bricks. This rhetoric is relentless, all to the single point, as relentless as the production schedule. It is clear that in this system there can be no Sabbath rest. There is no rest for Pharaoh in his supervisory capacity, and he undoubtedly monitors daily production schedules. Consequently, there can be no rest for Pharaoh's supervisors or taskmasters, and of course there can be no rest for the slaves who must satisfy the taskmasters in order to meet Pharaoh's demanding quotas. We may imagine, moreover, that the Egyptian gods also never rested because of their commitment to the aggrandizement of Pharaoh's system. For the glory of Pharaoh surely redounded to the glory of the Egyptian gods. The economy reflects the splendor of the gods who legitimate the entire system, for which cheap labor is an indispensable footnote. It requires no imagination to see that the Exodus memory and consequently the Sinai commandments are performed in a no Sabbath environment. In that context, all levels of social power, gods, Pharaoh, supervisor, taskmaster, slave, are uniformly caught up in and committed to the grind of endless production. In this system of hopeless weariness erupts the God of the burning bush. That God heard the despairing fatigue of the slaves, resolved to liberate the slave company of Israel from that exploitative system, and recruited Moses for the human task of emancipation. The reason Miriam and the other women can sing and dance at the end of the Exodus narrative is the emergence of a new social reality in which the life of the Israelite economy is no longer determined and compelled by the insatiable production quotas of Egypt or its gods. The first commandment is a declaration that the God of Exodus is unlike all the gods the slaves have known heretofore. This God is not to be confused with or thought parallel to the insatiable gods of imperial productivity. This God is subsequently revealed as a God of mercy, steadfast love, and faithfulness, who is committed to covenantal relationships of fidelity. When I stumbled across that on my shelf the other day, it really resonated both with this moment of anxiety around our jobs and our production, and are we adequate, as well as the sicknesses in our culture that I think have been revealed by this virus, and more importantly, by the necessity to take a Sabbath, to render ourselves idle for a period of time, and to recognize that everyone is vital and valid and important, whether they're able to find the right side hustle or to remain, what's the word, essential. Everyone's essential. That doesn't by any means mean that I am not very proud of all of the healthcare workers and grocery workers and truck drivers and everyone else without whom what is remaining of our economy would grind to a halt. But even that idea that one person is more essential than another is antithetical to the way God understands us to be. In the silence of our hearts, or in spoken words, let us give thanks for the gift of this day and pray for the life of the world. I pray for all those who are deemed essential, who hazard themselves and their families so that we can continue to eat and have medicine and continue to have those things that we need. I Give thanks for those who hazard themselves to try to take care of those who society deemed unessential before COVID-19, who are in need of shelter or food this night. The lights of the heavens were imagined by her. The textures of earth were thought by her. The power of the wind was her delight. The creatures of earth, sea, and sky were painted by her. The senses of the body and appetites of the soul were named by her. She was present at the birth of all things. Renew us in your wisdom, O God, for she is the midwife of our beginnings. The blessings of heaven, the blessings of earth, the blessings of sea and sky, on those we love this day, and on every human family. The gifts of heaven, the gifts of earth, the gifts of sea and sky. Amen. I will take a moment. And it appears that we oh my gosh. Hi, Aaron Frank. Thank you for being with us tonight. I hope things are going well with you. He's an old colleague of mine from Arbutus, a fantastic Presbyterian pastor. And hello, Candace and Marty and Jim. I'm so glad that you're with us tonight, and everyone else. And we'll see you on Saturday for evening prayer at 5 p.m., Sunday morning at 10 a.m., and then, of course, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. for comfort and courage. Everyone take care and have a good night. God's peace be with you.